Hi everybody, my name's Simone Walker and I'm one of the Deputy Secretaries here at DCJ.
And I'm Joanna Quilty, CEO of the New South Wales Council of Social Service.
In our last video from earlier in June, Joanna and I spoke a bit about learnings from the last few months, what we're going to keep doing and some myths that we've dispelled by this experience. So today we're going to reflect further on some of the issues that DCJ and the sector have focused on and had to address in order to get through the pandemic and to continue to support our most vulnerable as best as we possibly can.
That's right, Simone. There's certainly been no shortage of challenges that I think have arisen for our service providers during this time, where we've really had to think through how is it that we can continue to provide essential services but keep clients and staff safe. And I think generally we really have risen to the challenge. We've been able to work collaboratively with DCJ to come up with solutions and to find ways to continue to provide services and keep everyone safe. So we don't have time to cover everything, but I think there are some really good examples of where we did work collaboratively and achieve some good outcomes. And certainly one of them is the fact that there were 1,400 contracts well before COVID hit us, 1,400 contracts that were expiring in June 2020. And there was real concern in the sector about how on earth could DCJ manage such a huge workload and how was it going to happen. And I think that what we saw was that we were able to work through those issues, and a good many of those contracts did manage to get sorted out. And we've got a process in place for those that are still to be signed on the dotted line.
Look, we absolutely share those concerns, and certainly we were planning this for over a year. COVID-19 certainly added a level of complexity that we weren't expecting, because we also then needed to pivot and respond to community need. So it's been a huge achievement for all those contracts to get over the line, and nearly 90% were paid on the 1st of July, with the remainder being paid soon after that. So our aim in this really unusual environment was total flexibility. We really didn't want to rewrite contracts to include special activities that were happening at this time. And we wanted to make this work for people. So we really had to cut back on the reporting requirements across the board. You know, the pandemic has offered some opportunities too, with electronic signatures being made legal, and DCJ did this through DocuSign. You know, this innovation's made a huge difference and has dramatically shortened the timeframe from issue to signed to sealed and delivered.
And look, Simone, I really acknowledge all of that great work, but I think for all of that, there is one glaring omission, and that is that the contracts don't provide the degree of certainty that I think service providers need going forward, particularly as we move into an environment where they've lost a lot of their traditional funding sources, be that fundraising or income through renting out premises or, you know, income derived from training and events. The contracts don't give guarantees around indexation every year, and certainly the contracts don't spell out what happens with ERO funding once the supplementary payments come to an end. And in this, the environment that our service providers are in at the moment, this kind of certainty for the future is absolutely essential.
I'm really glad you raised it, Joanna, and I absolutely acknowledge the anxiety that that uncertainty causes for the sector. I don't want to pass the buck on this answer, but really we know it's a decision of government, and the delay in the budget will mean that we won't be able to be specific with people until that time. So I expect late October. But just want to acknowledge that certainly the combination of the not knowing, coming off COVID, and the reduction in opportunities for fundraising has created massive anxiety in the service system.
And we will have some ideas for you, Simone, about how we can deal with the ERO issue, and we'll be writing to you about that shortly.
Thanks, Joanna. I'd really appreciate that. And I know that Larry Morgan-Thomas, who looks after our partnerships area, will be keen to hear as well.
So another area where we know our sector really needed support was around resources to ensure that we're able to continue providing services while keeping staff and clients safe. So things like infection control, other safe work practices, and those kinds of really different issues that we don't normally encounter in the day-to-day workplace. And I think working with DCJ to develop a suite of resources that services could draw on has been a really important thing to come out of the pandemic.
That's right, Joanna. It was unusual times, and we made a range of resources available in response to the need. Things that we didn't actually think we would be producing. So there were specific protocols for our SHS services for infection control, links to other agencies' resources, such as Safe Work Australia and Health, some really good induction videos, training manuals, fact sheets, and absolutely practical guidance for virtual visits. We made useful resources from the Office of the Senior Practitioner available to the whole sector, and we had great feedback about that. Also, with everything moving online, access to devices became essential, and we soon needed to provide support in this area. So DCJ did launch a project to help vulnerable children, young people and families access technology during COVID-19. Which was essential to connecting with loved ones, but also with services and at the time, absolutely online education. So this was work that we needed to do with our government partners, our peaks, and organisations to secure assets. And we really needed to focus on families with young children and also young people who disengaged from school.
And as I said, getting that equipment out the door to those in need has been, I think, a really good thing to do. But in a sense, it is just the starting point. And if we're talking about a service system that needs to be able to extend its reach and capacity, then obviously technology really has to play a key role in that, whether that's about streamlining processes and making systems more efficient, ensuring accessibility for people, particularly in, hard to reach locations, or even data sharing and doing that kind of analysis to understand what's going on. So I think we're really talking about the need for a technology transformation almost. And I'm wondering, is there a plan for that? How do we get the focus on that kind of long-term thinking and start moving in that direction?
I think that's a really good idea. What we're trying to do at the moment is think about systematic and systemic ways that we can make sure that technology and resources are used effectively, especially from a range of government departments who may be changing over computers or looking at updating their resources. And what we want to do is be really careful with public money and make sure it gets used well. The more systematic we can be about that, the better, because it's actually really hard to start up a tech program and get everything out the door in a timely fashion. So it's good to say that hundreds and hundreds of devices have gone out the door. But again, if we could embed it in the culture of the way we do things, and also know that we know where the devices need to go to without having to start the whole machine up each time. So that's part of the plan at the moment.
That's good to know, Simone, that there is that broader thinking and the need for a plan around technology. But I think overall there's a need for a plan about the future and about the sustainability of the sector. We know that come September, end of September, when JobKeeper and JobSeeker potentially go back to, or JobKeeper disappears and JobSeeker goes back to what it was, that we are going to see rising demand, and organisations are really frightened for their financial viability. So I think to have some kind of an overarching plan so that we know we are going to be able to meet that demand and the sector is going to be viable is absolutely crucial at this point.
Look, absolutely. And I would like us to capitalise on some of the fantastic work that the Peaks did with the Social Policy Lab. We talked about that in some of our co-governance groups. I'm going to call a meeting together towards the end of July, early August, where we can use that to stimulate some conversation about how we create greater sustainability in the sector and make sure that we're meeting the need of the broad group of clients, including the clients that were new to us, that came to us during this period. And it was such a great piece of work. It's really timely to bring that back to the table.
It's really encouraging to think that the Peaks will be around the table and be part of that conversation going forward. So we look forward to that. Thanks, Simone.
Wouldn't want to do it without you. So good to see you, and thanks everyone for your time today.